Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge, a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services focusing on the Port of Anchorage and the major commercial participants in the Cook Inlet region, providing customers with marine services specifically tailored to their needs.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Wednesday's show. On the river and breakup map, or actually the warning and hazardous weather map here, got areas out. These warnings are for high and extreme fire danger for this evening. And in the case of the Copper River Basin, along the Copper River, south winds gusting 15 to 25 with gusts to 35 miles per hour. And in the case of the Alaska Range here, gusts as high as 50 miles per hour through the mountain passes, and that's mostly west of the Toe Cutoff. And relative humidities between 20 and 30%, so pretty high fire danger in those shaded areas there. And that's out until about 10 p.m. this evening. And moving along to the, there we go, there's the breakup map for May 13th. A lot of running of the water up here along the Yukon River. And then about Pilot Station, some areas that weren't moving at all, but downstream some open areas, and then mostly ice, and then back to mostly some to mostly open here until you get to Mountain Village. And then down toward Amonic, it's all frozen solid yet. And then here the Kuskokwim course open the entire stretch of the river, and the Koyukuk has some open there most of the way there, and now the Kobuk River showing some areas of open ice now, so that'd be the next one to start breaking up a little more each day. Onto the satellite imagery, here's the storm system there, that low coming just west of Nunivak Island in the front, extending down into the southwest interior. That's what brought all the rain and gusty winds from Kodiak Island, the Alaska Peninsula, up across the southwest interior today, with clouds extending up to the north there into Kotzebue Sound, the Bering Strait, and just clouds really covering much of the Bering Sea. Very few, if any, breaks, well, right through here, but the Aleutians pretty cloudy and showery today, with the conditions to the east much nicer and warmer and drier here, with temperatures in the 60s to near 70 in the interior valley. Same thing for the northern panhandle. Juneau pushed up to near 70 with sunshine all along the southeast coast, right up into the north central interior. A few showers up here along the Brooks Range area and possibly there south of Arctic Village, but nothing too widespread. The main rain here falling across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta areas, with Bethel picking up about 1/4 of an inch in the last 24 hours, while Aniak and Togiak had about 1/3 of an inch, and then St. Mary's had 4/10 of an inch, just under half an inch there. So some pretty good rainfall amounts with this over the southwest interior. Again, lighter up over the Yukon Delta, a couple hundredths of an inch out at Gamble, and then Kodiak, by contrast, had about 5/100ths of an inch, but you'll get more rain tonight and tomorrow as that front edges its way eastward over the island. And you can see it's mostly going south to north here, but the entire pattern will shift a little bit to the east in that frontal lineup right along Kodiak and come inland here. And then the clouds spreading in over south central Alaska this afternoon will thicken a little bit tonight, but most of the rain will stay west of Cook Inlet and to the south. On the chart, here's that frontal position this afternoon here with the triple point right near Kamishak Bay, and then the occluded front up across the Yukon Delta, with those winds again coming down now. King Sam with the front moving through and along the southwest coast, but still pretty gusty, especially up here to the north. Kotzebue seeing winds gusting 25 miles per hour out of the east, and Point Lay seeing gusts to 35 miles per hour there. And pretty breezy all along the Arctic coast. Wainwright had some snow flurries and fog with areas of low clouds and fog patchy fog here along the Arctic coast, mostly looking at the gusty wind conditions. A few isolated showers up here in the northeast, otherwise a lot of sunshine, warm temperatures right down into the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, and as I mentioned, over all of the southeast coast. For tonight, that'll continue, no change, light winds, fair skies. Could be some patchy areas of low clouds here along the outer coastline and locally inland, but nothing too serious, and then mostly fair, clear skies here over the eastern interior. Then you pick up the mid and high level moisture right through here. Could be an evening shower over the northwestern Alaska range. Actually, the entire western Alaska range could see some isolated showers this evening, but the rain chances south of the forelands there, Kamishak Bay, maybe some moisture reaching the southern part of the Kenai Peninsula, but the main rain area will be focused from Kodiak Island northwest here across the central Kuskokwim and lower Yukon valleys, up to the northwest there, spreading into the northwest and to about Cape Lisburne and Point Hope. With those gusty winds continuing, could see gusts 30 to 40 miles an hour along the western Arctic coast tonight in advance of that front. A little lighter back here to the west, more 10 to 20 with a few higher gusts there. But showers here over the southeast Bering Sea, and then this system brings a chance of rain up to the eastern Aleutians tonight. Otherwise, just a scattered shower condition all the way out to Shimei and Attu and over the southern Bering Sea. For tomorrow, another system comes northward along that frontal boundary there, keeps it right over Kodiak Island, so periods of rain and fog, and the winds a little lighter than they will be tonight, tomorrow, but still 10 to 20 out of the southeast there. Much lighter winds now along the southwest coast with the gradient having shifted inland and then kind of stretching out the original front, now just troughing out, but some leftover moisture, periods of rain, areas of, with some fog here up through the northwest valleys. This area up here probably should have been drawn in as snow. They'll probably, whatever falls up there will be in the form of snow. Those gusty east winds still gusting as high as possibly 30 to 40 miles per hour there. Pretty windy across the north slope and Arctic coast tomorrow as well, with east-northeast winds 15 to 30 miles an hour, and probably 10 to 20 with higher gusts here over the north slope and then diminishing south of the Brooks Range. Another sunny day over the interior, temperatures in the 60s to mid-70s here over the 40-mile country and mid-Tanana Valley locations. Fair weather, sunny, warm conditions down across the Copper River Basin. Another day much like today here along the southeast coast with all these showers staying over Canada. And showers back over the Aleutians. And then for Friday, another system pushes rain into the central Aleutians with an increase in the wind and rain heading eastward there to the Fox Islands, and then just showers there from the Pribilofs back to the west, wrapping back down in around Shimei and Attu out there, and some scattered showers. Just some leftover moisture now, just isolated to scattered showers over the western interior. Lose the clouds about through the mid part of the state, and then the east side again, another sunny, warm day of temperatures in the 60s to mid 70s. Strongest winds now on the eastern Arctic coast with gale warnings out for the eastern Beaufort Sea coastline all the way to Demarcation Point, looking for winds east 35 to 40 knots on Friday, but much lighter winds. Back to the west here, as you can see, a lot fewer lines drawn on the map, so less gradient, lighter winds. Lighter winds also, or light winds continue for the southeast coast there with high pressure up off the coast, northwesterly, say for Clarence Strait, up to 20 miles an hour at times, and west and northwest breezes along the outer coastline, but rain, again, probably becoming a little more showery for Kodiak Island, but an area of rain here across southern Kenai Peninsula, southern Cook Inlet, over to the western Alaska Range, down to the Aleutian Range, and some of that cutting off there, Bristol Bay is variably cloudy, partly sunny skies for the Alaska Peninsula, and then again an increase in the rain with that next system spreading eastward. And looking at the temperatures for today along the southeast coast, range from the upper 40s to upper 60s at 69 at Juneau, 62 at Skagway, 57 this afternoon at Sitka with 58 down at Annette, while Klawock had 61, 63 both at Port Alexander and Wrangell, 66 today at Yakutat with sunshine, 58 Cordova, 63 in Valdez, and 67 degrees in Gulkana. 66 at Talkeetna, 10 degrees cooler there at Palmer, 52 at Kenai, 55 in Homer. And up in the interior valleys, 60s, upper 60s to near 70. Eagle at 70 this afternoon with 68 at Fairbanks, 66 at Tanana, and a 62 at McGrath. And mid-60s over to Galena and Huslia with Ambler at 63, 52 at Anatuvik. Up along the Arctic coast, those east-northeast winds keeping it kind of chilly there with 28 at Barrow and at Dead Horse, 30 degrees at Atchison, 32 at Point Lay, and then 43 at Point Hope, and 44 at Kivlina. Kotzebue up to 51. Upper 40s here along the southern coast of the Seward Peninsula with Nome at 47. 48 there at Unalakleet. 43 at St. Michael with 41 at Amonik. Same thing at Macoriac there. Bethel up to 48 degrees today. For the Pribilof, St. Paul at 40, but 43 at St. George on the island there. 34 up at St. Lawrence Island at Gamble. 47 on Alaska, upper 40s here for the Alaska Peninsula, and then lower 50s up over northeast Bristol Bay with lower 40s for Adak and Atka. 39 at Shimia. Lows tonight out that way, mid to upper 30s there for the Aleutians and the Bering Sea, lower 30s over the northern Bering with mid 20s along the Arctic coast and North Slope areas, and then upper 20s to lower 30s across the Brooks Range, south of the mountains though, lower 40s, some areas dropping into the upper 30s, mostly in the upper 30s to mid 40s here over the interior, lower to mid 40s over south central Alaska, southwest Alaska about the same thing there, mostly in the 40s, lower to mid 40s here for the Panhandle, some areas staying closer to 50 down to the south. And then the highs for tomorrow, 60s again across the southeast coast, day just about like today. Some areas a little warmer, other areas just as warm. Lower to mid 70s here through the interior valleys. Again, Eagle might hit 75, otherwise the greater Fairbanks area out to the west, lower 70s. Upper 20s along the Arctic coast with 30s over the North Slope, and 40s to lower 50s out here to the west. Upper 40s for the Alaska Peninsula, mid 40s for the Aleutians. And for flying weather, we've got VFR here, Cook Inlet, all along the North Gulf Coast and the Panhandle. Could be some patchy marginal VFR along the coastline in the morning, but that'll give way to VFR by late morning. But VFR all the way north to the Arctic coast, and then area marginal VFR there on the western North Slope and the coastal areas there. Then VFR, Kotzebue Sound, much of the Seward Peninsula, but quite an area of marginal conditions here over the west and southwest part of the state. Got some VFR here due to the downsloping winds off the Aleutian Range, that easterly flow, but on the windward side, IFR all across Kodiak Island, and then another area of IFR out here over the southeast Bering Sea. Marginal conditions, more IFR from St. Lawrence Island back down into the northern Bering with marginal VFR, the remainder of the Aleutians. And looking at the passes for Anaktuvik, VFR on either approach, and Adigan, same forecast, good VFR tomorrow. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR giving way to VFR in the afternoon. And for rainy, marginal VFR, lowest conditions, all those passes in the western range will be on the eastern entrances, becoming VFR in the afternoon hours. For windy, VFR, either approach, and Isabel, north-south entrance through the pass, VFR. That same forecast good for Mentasta as well. For Tanita, VFR. And for Portage, there'll be ceilings and reduced visibilities possibly, but it should stay above 7 miles and above 3,000 feet, or above 5,000 feet. Let's see, for Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels, 10,000 feet, upper high pressure here over western Canada. Not too bad here over the interior, 6 to 8,000 feet there, so warm enough to allow temperatures to rise into the mid-70s here over the eastern interior, and then 4 to 6,000 feet up along the Arctic coast. Big cool pool here, 4,000 feet over the central and southeast Bering down across the Aleutians, 6,000 feet over the west central Aleutians. Icing threats, again, along where that frontal boundary is and the moisture streaming northwestward. Could be some areas of moderate, widespread, moderate rime icing here, Kodiak Island, and then possibly over the Killbuck Mountains with another patch there along the Alaska Peninsula with light to isolated moderate rime all the way up in toward Kotzebue Sound, and then some hit and miss stuff with the showers out here to the west, and then that next batch probably will be edging its way east-northeastward again for tomorrow night and on Thursday or Friday. Upper level winds showing this low here south of the eastern Aleutians. Southeast flow 70 to 90 knots there across Kodiak Island, that carrying that moisture north and northwest and then northward up along the coast. Upper level high here over the Panhandle, northern Panhandle. Again, that's holding. That's going to direct all that moisture up to the north and northwest, just kind of grazing the western Alaska Range and southern Cook Inlet areas, but keeping the interior and the eastern and central areas pretty warm and dry for the next couple of days. And for 9,000 feet, pretty good southeasterlies, 30 as high as 55 knots here over Kamishak Bay, and a good southeast wind flow up to the north Arctic coast, western Arctic coast, east-southeast, 35 knots, diminishing to 15 knots to the east. light variable winds over the panhandle, light variable winds under this trough axis, but southerlies at about 20 to 25 through the east central Bering Sea. 3,000 feet, same pattern here, 25 knot south winds through the east central Bering, more lighter and variable here for the Alaska Peninsula, and then those southeasterlies 30 to 50 knots there across Kodiak Island into the southwest interior. Easterlies 3,000 feet, 30 to 35 knots along all of the Arctic coast. Turbulence could be areas of occasional to widespread moderate chop there along the Arctic coast, as well as from Fognak Island up across northeast Bristol Bay, Lake Iliamna, and those areas with some maybe areas of light to isolated moderate turbulence possible there around St. Lawrence Island, but that should stay west and southwest of the Bering Strait, and then a little bit out here over the Aleutians, but nothing too serious. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
By inserting a tube into the snowpack, hydrologists obtain a sample of the entire depth of the snow cover, which they weigh to determine how much water is in it. This method only tells the snow water equivalent for a tiny area. To measure a large area, hydrologists sometimes use a low-flying aircraft. A special sensor on the aircraft measures natural radiation emitted from soils. This harmless radiation is blocked by water in the snow. The more water contained in a snowpack, the less radiation gets through the snow. So by measuring how much radiation is blocked, hydrologists can determine the amount of water in the snow below the aircraft flight line. Once hydrologists know how much water is contained in the snow, they can more accurately predict how much water or runoff to expect when the snow melts. Hydrologists usually think of runoff as the rainwater or snowmelt that doesn't soak into the ground or return to the air through the process of evaporation. It's just waiting for a place to go. Runoff can occur on all types of surfaces: roads, roofs of houses and buildings, sidewalks, and on surfaces that are covered with vegetation. Runoff can travel along the surface of the ground, eventually finding its way into street gutters, small streams, creeks, and finally into rivers, which make their way to the oceans. Because runoff collects water from widespread areas, small amounts of rainfall, say 1 inch, can cause a river to rise many feet and sometimes flood. It is therefore important for hydrologists to study runoff and be able to forecast the types of situations where it would be a problem.
Flood prediction depends critically on our ability to estimate runoff. The amount of runoff that can occur depends on many factors. If there's a big rain, the soil will soak up as much water as it can. Any more rain falling onto this wet soil becomes runoff. Some kinds of soil can soak up more water than others.
The speed at which water moves also determines the amount of runoff. Water moves faster over surfaces such as paved streets and gutters, and slower over rough, porous areas such as lawns and other areas covered by vegetation. Also, runoff travels faster over steep slopes than over flatter areas. Rivers convey runoff to the ocean. When the volume of water exceeds the river channel's capacity to contain it, flooding occurs. The role of the hydrologist goes beyond scientific measurements, data gathering, and predicting river floods. Since hydrologic forecasts are vital to those at risk, they must be communicated.
Hydrologists work with TV and radio stations, emergency managers, and city officials to determine how to better understand and utilize hydrologic information and then communicate it to the public.
The National Weather Service communicates forecasted river levels nationwide, 24 hours a day.
National Weather Service
Timely warnings inform the public when and in what areas rivers will flood and how to avoid being caught in one. These advance warnings have saved lives and property time and time again.
Very often, what we'll do is contact a severe weather forecaster, actually at the National Weather Service office, and say, what's happening? A good many of the decisions that we in emergency management make are going to be based on what we hear from the weather forecaster.
Whatever part of the county the Weather Service tells us that the problem's going to be at with the flooding on there, or a lot of rain, or the hailstorms, that's the part of the county we're going to put our deputies at to be able to help out the citizens.
We're not just in front of a computer anymore. We become communicators. We work with the police departments, the sheriff's departments, fire departments, and emergency managers. We become their technical resource through interactions with the National Weather Service on what they can anticipate, where they can expect the worst problems to be.
So that they can have one step up on the weather that's coming in that day.
So the hydrologist's role is crucial in letting me make the decisions to know how far we're going to have to evacuate, how much do we notify people. And the really interesting thing about the hydrologist is they give us accurate information. People don't want to get a warning that's inaccurate, because pretty soon you're crying wolf. So the hydrologist in emergency management is crucial.
Hydrologists are scientific specialists. Their forecasts are glimpses into the future, granting us precious time to prepare for emergencies, saving lives and property. Hydrologists prepare us for the effects of floods. Their forecasts are also relied upon to meet the needs of cities, small towns, industries, and others that depend on adequate supplies of water. Dynamic and evolving, the science of hydrology moves forward. Ongoing discoveries and technological breakthroughs raise new challenges, opportunities for the hydrologists of tomorrow. If you're interested in a career that saves lives, solves serious problems, and advances the frontiers of science, pursue the study of hydrology. What can you do now to become a hydrologist? If you're studying science, mathematics, and computers, you're already on your way. Go to college and take advanced studies in these subjects, as well as hydrological science. Read more about hydrology. You can start by visiting this website.
Welcome back. Well, the ice has moved a fair distance northward from where it was over the weekend, and it's going to continue to move north and a little northwest here over the next several days as those south winds continue across the area. For the southeast coast, westerlies 15 to as high as 20 knots down on the south coast, while the inside waters northwest 10 to 20, south 20 knots for northern Lynn Canal in the afternoon. And then for Friday, westerlies north coast 10 knots, and then west-northwest at 15 down on the central and south coast. Northwesterlies continue to be 20 knots for Clarence Strait, westerlies 15 through the inside waters in the central, and then Lynn Canal south 15, seas 3 feet. Cook Inlet, north of the Forelands, northeast 15, south of the Forelands 20 knots, easterlies at 30, small craft advisory there for Kamishak Bay, southeast 25 to 30 knots here for the western Gulf Coast and the Barren Islands and the east side of Kodiak Island. Easterlies at 20 for Shelikof Strait and the North Gulf Coast. And for Friday, light easterlies at about 10 knots there for Prince William Sound, east 15 for northern Cook Inlet, 30 knots, small craft advisory winds, the Barren Islands and across Kamishak Bay, northeast 25 for Shelikof Strait, lighter winds there on the east side of Kodiak Island, and southeast 20 to 25 from the North Gulf Coast. Out to the west, Bristol Bay, southeast at 10, light easterlies here down the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, and light southeasterlies, 15 knots from Sitkinak all the way over to Cape Sarachev. And for Friday, variable at 10 for Bristol Bay. Light southerlies here on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. Southwest breeze here 10 to 15 up toward Kodiak Island. And for the Aleutians, south to southwest, 20 knots to 25 knots for Adak and Atka. Lighter, more variable there for the Fox Islands. And west to southwest or northwest to southwest, 10 to 20 for the western chain. Those pick up to 25 knots here out west, and also 20 to 25 knots from the south and southeast there for the Fox Islands, as well as the central areas on Friday. For the southwest coast tomorrow, south of Nunivak Island, light variable winds, otherwise up to 25 knots there for St. Lawrence Island and the northern Bering Sea. And then for Friday, light variable winds, St. Lawrence Island all the way down to Nunivak Island, and southwesterlies here south of Nunivak Island at 10 to 15 knots. Small craft advisories for the Pribilof Islands southeast picking up to 25 and seas building to 10 feet. For the Arctic coast, brisk wind advisories everywhere except for the gales here on the west side at 35 knots with Wales to Cape Thompson, southeast at 20. And then these become lighter on Friday here as those winds kick up easterly 35 to 40 knots along the eastern Arctic coast and even up to 30 knots on the central coast. But you even hold the brisk wind advisories here from Point Lay back to the northwest. And for tonight, again, no change over the eastern interior, mostly clear skies, light winds. Have the high fire danger out this evening for those winds, which aren't light, gusting to 50 miles an hour, forecast to through the eastern Alaska Range passes and up to 35 miles an hour along the Copper River. But that's this evening, then they'll lighten up considerably. Light winds, fair skies for the Panhandle, rain, Kodiak Island, northwestward to the northwest valleys. Showers falling in behind. More rain for Kodiak tomorrow. More rain here over the southwest interior with a mixture of rain or snow as you get up toward the western Arctic coast, and then dry to the east, but still pretty breezy. Kind of a break here over the eastern Bering Sea. Fair skies for the Pribilofs, light winds, same thing for the eastern Aleutians. More showers out to the west, and that next low spreads rain to the eastern Aleutians, and just some isolated showers and variable clouds here in the west. Another sunny, warm day from the Brooks Range through the east central interior all the way down to Prince William Sound, the North Gulf Coast. High pressure keeping it dry with light winds over the southeast coast. Now still an area of rain with this system there, Kodiak Island, southern Kenai Peninsula, western Alaska Range on those eastern slopes.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.